I'm Kennedy Weber. Today, political science professor Amy Edmonds is joining me to talk about politics after the election. Welcome, Dr. Edmonds.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So, how excited are you that the election is finally over?
Well, I have to admit, my feelings are mixed about it. I'm a little sad, and that is because the election for political scientists is really sort of like the Olympics for athletes. It's just a very exciting time, and I love that during an election season, my students always have lots of questions, and they're really interested in what's going on, I think a little bit more than usual. But I will admit, I'm a little happy to also see this election behind us. And that is because the level of rhetoric in this election was definitely more pessimistic than usual. They're always somewhat divisive, and candidates always say mean things about each other. But the level of name calling in this election was really quite high, and I found it kind of discouraging and off-putting. So for that reason, I'm also glad it's behind us.
Yeah. Do you think that has kind of made people sick of politics then?
A little bit. A number that I was really worried about is the number 57, and that is the voter turnout of eligible voters. So only 57% of people who were eligible to vote did in this election.
Yeah.
And that's actually down from 2012, which was 58.5%, and that's way down from 2008, where the voter turnout rate was much closer to 60%.
Yeah.
So I am worried that people have been sort of put off a little bit by this election.
Yeah. Do you think that might be because of the nasty rhetoric among people and like different politicians?
Yeah, I think, for better or worse, people tend to focus on the presidential candidates, even though, of course, as we know, there's many other important positions up for the election as well. Most of the focus goes to the presidential candidates. And without a doubt, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton were both breaking norms of discourse. And I would say not only were the presidential candidates doing that, but to some degree that trickled down to their supporters. And their supporters were then also just saying some really sort of mean and vicious things on social media. There was a lot of attacks on people who they felt like disagreed with them or disagreed with their candidates. So yeah, I think the level of violent rhetoric has drastically increased, and that is problematic for us as a society.
Yeah. Do you think that since all these people are just being extremely divisive, do you think that this has kind of been caused by a polarization of different parties?
We definitely see increasing polarization between Republicans and Democrats. In the last 20 years, we know that Republicans have become more conservative and that Democrats have become more liberal. And not only has there actually been increasing polarization when it comes to policy issues, but there's also been increasing dislike and distrust of people that you see as different than you. And yeah, that has a lot of ramifications for sort of our politics in general, because it makes it a lot harder to compromise. If you see somebody who doesn't hold your political beliefs, that's not just holding different political beliefs, but is actually being a bad person because they hold those beliefs and therefore untrustworthy. That makes it much harder to compromise. It's much harder for us to get things done, to pass legislation, and to find common solutions to rising problems.
Yeah. Why do you think that it's become so polarized?
Well, a big answer to that question is actually the media. Because you have so many more different media outlets than you used to, on one hand, that means that people have access to the media like never before, and they have access to smaller stories. It also means they have access to bad media that is only trying to cater to a particular group of people that's not really concerned with the truth, but is only concerned with encouraging a certain viewpoint. And so today, more than ever, it's easier for liberals to only read news with a liberal slant, and it's easier for conservatives to only read news with a conservative slant. And it's making it much harder to find news in the middle.
Dr. E, thank you so much for coming today.